Hello, my name is Dorin Ellen Beldotan from Tzfat, and I come bearing gifts of Torah. In order for you to receive those gifts, you're going to have to fulfill a few conditions. First, you're going to have to be able to turn off the tape in your head now, which is saying, woman had not covered, she can't possibly know more about Torah than I do. Turn that off, because I do. Hashem, in his whimsical wisdom, has a way of choosing unlikely candidates, and I promise you, I'm one of Hashem's best jokes. Second condition that you're going to have to fulfill is you're going to have already arrived at a place where, although you are Harav Chachame to the audiences that are enthralled with your wisdom, when you're alone, you're able to say to yourself, I know that I'm close to the truth, but I haven't touched the core. I know that I'm not really real yet. I know that I'm not really authentic, living Torah yet. If you can fulfill those, if you have fulfilled those two conditions, then please stay and let me give you what I came here to give you. If not, then please toddle off and go tie your tzitzis somewhere. What is Torah? Torah is the interface between Ein Sof and the created worlds that allow those created worlds to come into being. Two of the most central chilufim for the word Torah, which is equal to 611, is at hara and et atzmi. At hara et atzmi. Torah is the pregnancy and the incubation of Hashem in Hashem. Is the actual incubation of Hashem. The language in which we learn Torah is Ivrit. The word Ivrit, which is equal to 682, and is the gematria of Maaseh Merkava, can be understood as Ayin, Beit, and Resh, which is the correct spelling of the word Ubar, which is an embryo. Ubar is written with a kubutz, not with a shuruk. There's no vav in it. And when we do gematriot, we have to be very careful not to use a mot kriya without a reason. So we don't write uba with a vav. We write it as it is, ayin beit resh. The yud and the tav at the word of ivrit is kodesho. So ivrit is ubar kodesho. Ubar is also Hashem medaber. Hashem medaber kodesho. This is what Torah is. Who is Moshe? Gematria of Moshe is 345, which is the gematria of HaSefer. Moshe is HaSefer Atzmo. The gematria of Moshe is also Gufi Medaber, and it is also Shiliyah, which means placenta. So here we see Torah is Atara, Ivrit is Hashem Medaber Kodsho, Ubar Kodsho, his holy embryo, and we see that Moshe is Shiliyah. So we're talking about pregnancy. A continuous pregnancy and a continuous birth. When we learn Torah, Torah is a very powerful membrane that has a number of different biological functions. This is all life. These are not abstract concepts. This is life itself. This is what's really going on. The shiliyah is a shield. The placenta is a shield that shields the embryo from the mother because it's incubating and it cannot interact with her blood system. So the Shelia has to feed the baby and at the same time protect the baby from her blood system. That's the Shelia. That's what Moshe is. So Moshe is shielding Ein Sof from the baby which is incubating, and at the same time it is providing the nourishment to that baby that it needs in order to grow and to reach the level of maturity that will allow it to be born. This is a continuous, ongoing process. This is what real Torah is. Nothing comes into this world except through Torah. Nothing. Anytime we see something in the world that we either do like or don't like, we have no source of either pride or complaint but our own learning. Hagoyim hem hahiguim shalanu. When we learn Torah, we bring Hagoyim into existence, and they are the hitgalmut of the intentions and the thoughts and the feelings that we had when we were learning. So the beautiful things that we see in the Goyim, we can tap ourselves on the shoulder. We've done a great job of learning Torah. The things that we see in them that we don't like, we have to say to ourselves, what did we do wrong in our learning? And learn correctly. What is a Jew? Jew is born into the world and thinks that he or she is a created being. We think that we're a person. And that is necessarily the case. We have to be born into the world in a state of self-unknowing and amnesia, because the world that we are born into is not yet powerful enough to be able to contain what we really are. A Jew is Ein Sof Baguf. All of us are Ein Sof Baguf. That's what we really are. The reason why we don't know that, and the reason why to most of us Hashem is some abstract concept that we talk about in the third person. I get such a kick out of listening to Jews talking about themselves in the third person as though Deibishter. When you get it, you'll realize how funny it is. We protect the world from, by not knowing who we are, we protect the world from getting too much of an influx. Because until the world is prepared, if the full influx of Ein Sof were to come through us, all of a sudden we would remember who we are and see the whole thing, the world would just go poof, and that would be it. Instant obliteration, and that's not what we want, right? What is the program here? The program here is to create a world of purified, fortified, infinite matter, which is a perfect mirror of Ein Sof, completely without any existential properties, that is able to couple with Ein Sof, a place of a dwelling and a place to be a perfect mirror of Ein Sof. And that is to be the perfect mate of Ein Sof. That is the program here. That's what's really flying. We are trying, and guys, get with the program, because most of the rabbis are not doing this, and I'm going to explain what's wrong. The program is to create a world of purified, fortified, infinite matter that can be a real Mishkan for Hashem. And the way we do that is by learning Torah correctly. When we are learning Torah correctly, we are refining our midot, that's true. We are increasing our consciousness, that's true. But most importantly, we should be refining the matter of our body, because our bodies are the entire universe, the entire creation. And so our learning of Torah cannot just be abstract. It has to get down to the level of a kishkes. Until when you learn, you feel your feet tingling, you have not learned Torah correctly. What is the problem? Before I go on, I want to show you something. Do you see the light on my face? I want to show you guys something. I'm going to get up for a minute. I want to show you something. I want you to see something. I'm going to raise the camera above where I sit. See that? There is no light above my head. There's no lamp above my head. I'm not sitting and baking under a light bulb. The light that you're seeing on my forehead and on my nose, the camera picks it up. That's not artificial light. When we learn Torah correctly, the chomer becomes a vessel for holiness. But you guys aren't learning that way. I'm going to tell you why you're not learning that way. Torah, as I hope I have amply demonstrated, is a book of life and not a book of ceremonies. There are no ceremonies in Torah. It's the book of life itself. Even understanding is essentially biological. We're talking about life itself, and there are no ceremonial, symbolic simulations of life. You're either doing life or you ain't. And you guys ain't. What happens when we do ceremonies? What happens? What happens when we put on tefillin? What happens when we kiss a mezuzah? What happens when we do any of the mitzvot, the way you're doing them? You are giving directives to the creation to create a simulation of life. And that is what you're getting. Then you don't understand why you're living in what has been called in Kabbalah quite correctly, the world of illusion. Did you ever ask yourself where that illusion is coming from? It is coming from your not doing the mitzvot, that is building the body that is able to be the Mishkan for Hashem. You are doing ceremonial reenactments of it. You did not understand that David is the gematria of Yad, that Batsheva, which is the gematria 774, which is Eden, is Yad Yemin. You did not understand that the name of the prophet Shmuel is also small, that's the left hand. You did not see that Moshe is the Shiliyah. You did not see that Rachel is Haregel. You did not see that Miriam is Shtei Einai. You did not see any of this. You saw them as personages in Torah, somebody else who lived long ago and far away. And you didn't understand that what was being talked about when you were reading them is your own parts of your body, and if you would have understood what was being said to you, you would have built up those Everim to be able to really receive Hashem, to be able to really receive Ein Sof. You have been doing, I'm sorry to say this, Babylonian magic. You have not been doing Torah. It hurts me to say this, but somebody has to tell you the truth. You are not making your bodies into the Mishkan, which is what we're supposed to be doing here. Guys, get with the program. Why do the parts of our bodies in Torah appear to us as whole personages? Why doesn't Hashem, when he's talking about a yad, just talk about the hand, and your finger works this way, and the bohen and the etzba and the amma. Why doesn't Hashem tell you about all that? The answer is Hashem does tell you about all that if you're reading it correctly. But the reason why each of the Evarim are presented to us as personages is because Ein Sof cannot be divided. So Hashem does not talk about the individual parts of our bodies as parts, but as wholes, because that's what they are. When they start to work correctly integrated, it's all integrated as wholes. It's all what they call today in the modern lingo fractal. You know, everything is sort of contained, hakol b'kol kol ken, like that. In order to get to that level of being a real mishkan that can be knowingly Ein Sof Baguf, you already are Ein Sof Baguf, but you cannot allow yourself to see that, because you know that if you were to see that, everything that you're looking at would be obliterated, because you have not purified and fortified the material to be able to accept that knowledge, because you have been doing the mitzvahs the way you think they are from the Babylonian Talmud. And I'm coming here to tell you the God's honest truth. The Babylonian Talmud is Babylonian bullshit. It is Avodah Zarah, and that is what you've been doing, and that is the way the world looks the way it is. And that's why there's so much pain in the world, and that is why the material in this world is on such a low level. And that's the reason why time is problematic in this world, because you have not understood that the Zaman is the gematriot of Mikraot and Lahavin. To understand the Mikraot the way in which we understand the Mikraot is the way everything in time operates, and you're not doing that. You're not doing real Torah. And the creatures are hurting because you're not doing Torah correctly. The creatures are hurting. And we have no one to blame but ourselves when we see a world in which there is pain. I want to talk about the Kabbalah. Because you are not doing real Torah, and you know in your hearts you're not doing real Torah, you know you're not real. You always feel it's sima'on, right? Atat sameh kol hazman. Why? Because you're not drinking mayim chayim. So you go looking for something to be deeper, to go into it, you go looking, and you develop the Kabbalah, right? But you don't let go of the Babylonian Talmud to learn the Kabbalah. And by the way, there were those who did, and they reached really high levels. But unfortunately, because they knew that if they were to tell the rabbis that they were no longer learning Talmud, that they would be considered apikosim, they had to keep it on the shushu. So Rav Avraham Abulafia, for instance, when he writes of 7 different levels of learning Torah, he puts learning Talmud at the 2nd level, right after being an analphabet and a woman. It's funny too. Learning Talmud, according to Rav Abulafia, is the 2nd level out of 7. The Baal Shem Tov put on an act in front of his father-in-law that he was some kind of an imbecile. Why? Because he didn't want to learn Talmud. He wanted to learn Torah. The only way he could get out of the Talmud lessons was by convincing people he was some kind of, what can I tell you? Not right in the head. So they were embarrassed about him. They thought that he was some kind of a weirdo, and he could go off into the forest and learn real Torah. The Zohar is a gematria 217, written correctly, again without a vav. It's Hey Zayin Hey Reish, Ze Ha Zohar. Razi, Orwi, it is the name Devorah. The real Zohar is the level of Hanevuah Shel Devorah. And my neighbor, Haramak, knew that. He gave a hint about that when he called his book Tomer Devorah. Tomer is 646, which is the gematria of the name Elohim, which is medaberet. Tomer Devorah is Devorah medaberet. Now let's look at the name Devorah. We see the word Devar, and then we have Vav He. Vav He is the gematria 11, which is the same thing as 1010, which is the gematria of Ha'atika HaKedusha. As HaZohar is Devorah, which is Devar Ha'atika HaKedusha. Ra'ah Ha'atika HaKedusha. That's the real Zohar. That's not the stuff that you're learning. Why can't you learn real Zohar? And why are you not learning real Zohar? Because you don't give up the Talmud. You're trying to force the Talmud into these learnings, and it doesn't work. And another reason why is because you have pushed feminine wisdom aside from your learning Torah. Both men and women have moach, brain, yes? But only women have rechamim, rechamim. Now we see that the word memchet is contained within rechamim, rachamim, but not the other way around. In other words, it's only women who have the whole package. We have both the brain and the rechamim. Now, rechem with a regular mem is a chiluf of the word chomer. Only women can bring the level of kedusha not only down to the level of understanding, but down to the level of chomer. We can learn it down in our kishkas in a way in which you cannot. So what happens is when men try to learn Kabbalah, and the Kabbalah is becoming pregnant from Devar Hashem, yeah, which you cannot do, you begin to hallucinate. The gematria of the word sfirot is the same as machshevot, but you didn't realize that you were looking at your own thoughts. Lo yecholtem lahamchish, you couldn't make those thoughts real. So they became hallucinations, and you started to hallucinate all kinds of things. This is what happens when men push the women aside, are not informed by our bina yetira, right? And you try to do with your brains what can only be done on the level of rechem. And this is what the whole problem is with learning Kabbalah without being formed by female wisdom. On the physical world, it brings all kinds of problems into the world because women feel, and rightfully so, that we're not being properly engaged, we're not being properly involved. And then you have all kinds of problems in the world, like the monstrosity that feminism has turned into. This would not exist if women were correctly and involved in all of the process of learning Torah, from the learning down to the actually giving birth of it. If we were only supposed to give birth to men who learn Talmud, we wouldn't have a brain. What would we need it for? We'd be only rechem, but Hashem gave us both. We're the ones with the whole package. Habibi, accept it, deal with it. This is the reality. If you don't deal with it, you'll continue to learn and live in this world of degraded, decrepit misery. If that's what you want, keep on going the way you are. If you want to bring along some kind of a geula, which happens to be, again, it's written with a kubutz. There is no vav in the word geula, which means it's leida. If you really want to bring the geula, you're going to have to get the girls on board, because only we can bring the leida. You cannot. Accept it, deal with it. This is reality. This is the way Hashem made us. Same thing with Hasidus. When I look at the world, what I see is rechamim inside of rechamim, inside of rechamim. I see how Hashem protects the world from more influx that it's able to get, but at the same time it's always incubating more, and more is always being brought out, and more is all enfolding. Why can I understand that way? Because I have it for real installed as part of my body. So to me, it's not just learning abstracts, I'm actually living it. This is my living flesh. So I understand my living flesh. Gufi medaber. I'm learning like Moshe. When a man tried to understand the rachamim and the rechamim betoch rechamim, what did he see? He saw klippos. He saw klipot. Why did he think in terms of klipot? Because being a man, genius that he is, still didn't get down to the level of being able to see the rachamim, to see it actually physically, to not only to understand it, but to live it, to feel it, for it to be your entire being of learning Torah. So he saw klipot instead of rachamim, instead of seeing the unfolding of all of the ubarim, one inside of the other, and each unfolding as it develops. He saw klipot, and he completely misunderstood. And it's very, very interesting that he calls one of the klipot klipat noga. Why is this interesting? Because noga is the gematria of the word mochi. It's the name Nunchet, Noach. It's mochi. That's exactly it. He got stuck at the level of the klipa of his own moach because he couldn't get it down to the level of rachamim. I invite you to start learning real Torah, to stop peddling your broken ceramic pots that you're making out of Babylonian mud, and return to real Eretz Yisrael. What is Eretz Yisrael? First of all, Yisrael, which is a gematria of 541, is Imcha, Imech, your mother. It is also Hamitzvot, written correctly with one Vav. Hamitzvot, we are the mitzvot. And it's also Holech. Israel is not a geographic spot. And it does not have to be protected with a government and with the army. That's not Israel. Israel is where a person in godly consciousness, holech, where they put their foot down, that's Israel. We know this from Avraham. What else do you need? Avraham, by the way, that's the gematria of Rechem. Bara Adam. These are not personages from way back when. This is living Torah. And it's not living Torah up here. It's living Torah in your kishkis. When your toes start to tingle, that's when you've understood Torah. Because when your toes start to tingle, what's happening is you're touching land and you're feeling the land turning into holy land as your foot touches it. And that is what makes it Israel. When we learn Torah, we are learning from Eretz Yisrael. What is that? What is Eretz Yisrael? What is ha'avak shel Eretz Yisrael? It is the chomer that has already been made a fitting vessel for Ein Sof by those who have already reached that level. That is what Chumash and Tanakh is. Talmud is not. Talmud is Talmud. It's Babylon. The time has come to return from Babylon to Eretz Yisrael. Atem muzmanim. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being patient with me and listening.